Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. As a teacher, how common is it for students to bribe you? It's odd that you should ask. Someone put a $100 bill on my desk today and told me to give her an A. It was, sadly, not a real $100 bill. A cunning forgery, but my eye immediately caught a few problems with it. It wouldn't have mattered, but it would have been slightly flattering if it had been real. She was, of course, joking. Those freshmen. Oh, I've never had a serious attempt to bribe me. Not in 20 years. Some might say that I seem too principled to take a bribe. In truth, it's probably because my students know how much it would cost to bribe me. Would I take $1 billion to change a student's grades? Sure. It's $1 billion. It's a pretty tiny wrong that would, in the long run, likely just harm the student who had bribed me. It's rough to go somewhere you're not qualified to go to. My grade change got you into the university of your choice? Cool. Now you can enjoy working hard there, knowing that you didn't really earn it and may not succeed. Once you've established that I can be bribed, we now just need to establish the price. It's probably going to cost you a lot. After all, if I'm caught, it's likely to cost me my career, my house, etc. Those are worth a lot to me. In addition, there are the possible criminal charges, lawyer fees, etc. Then we have the loss in wages. Even as a teacher, I can expect to make some decent money before I retire. At a minimum, I'm looking at $3 million. Now we have to add in whatever is going to make me want the deal. Let's double that. I'll take $10 million. Wait, that's more than double? Maybe it is, but I'm not a math teacher. Unfortunately, the students in my area can't fork over $10 million. Of course, if they could afford $10 million, they can probably afford more. I'd probably have to figure out how much they can afford. Unfortunately, knowing me, I can always screw up a good thing. I'd probably just price myself out of their market. Damn it. Apparently, it's my greed. I'll never get a bribe at this rate. Can I put a twist on this? I had a teacher try to bribe me. Way back in early high school for our first year, year 7, we basically had a try at every subject available. You had your core subjects such as math, English, science, etc., and you had your electives. Home economics, languages other than English, manual arts, etc. A subject which was compulsory in year 7 was music. In year 7 all the students had to try every instrument. If you could make a noise out of the instrument, you basically were stuck with it. I made a noise out of almost everything, but by the time it got to me all the flute, clarinet, trumpet positions were filled. Which was good for me, because I didn't want to play those instruments anyway. I was really hanging out for the guitar or even drums. But I was handed the baritone. And I made a pretty good sound out of it. Guess what instrument was selected to be mine? Anywho, without a choice, I played the baritone to the best of my ability. I think I played okay, barely ever practiced out of hours, survived the year, and received a pretty good pass mark. Come year 8, where a few electives were allowed, I needed to fill my 5th elective. I didn't want to do sewing, I didn't want to do speech and drama, so music it was. Due to there being fewer people, I was promoted to euphonium. Anyway, the year was much the same. I played well, barely practiced, yet I was passing and achieving quite well. Come the end of the year, our elective choices had reduced again for the following year. I chose not to continue music. The music teacher was aghast. Multiple times he pulled me aside and told me how good I was and how much he thought it was a good idea I continued music and the euphonium further through high school. Well, just before our final decision for our electives were handed in, the music teacher asked me to his office. He sat me down and all but pleaded with me to continue with music. He looked me dead in the eyes and offered me $50 as an incentive to continue. I chose not to. No regrets. I can't really speak to the frequency of bribes to teachers for certain favors, though the more emphasis on the favor, or importance to the student, the greater the bribe I think. I once trained pharmaceutical sales new hires on pharmacology, anatomy, and physiology, and the finer points which distinguished our drug from the competitors. A very lucrative career was on the line here. As you may imagine, the anxiety was rampant. A whole lot rode on a single final test which either secured one a good career, or sent them packing for home. As a training manager, I had the final test and knew all the questions and answers beforehand. It was necessary in order that we made sure to cover all the required information for which the class would be tested. The classes were held in a large hotel/convention rooms and all the potential new hires stayed in the hotel, as did all the trainers. I was approached at the elevators by 3 rather attractive female students and offered, insinuated, or 3-on-1 sexual party in exchange for some of the test questions. I valued my job way too much to fall for this. So, I sent them away with the encouragement that everything they needed to know for the test had been adequately covered in class. They passed without debasing themselves. Wait, what am I saying? They would have never gotten over such a night with the likes of me. Lol. Cheers. Early in my career, I had a number of students from Korea and Japan who would offer me gifts at the end of the term, bags of candy or little doodads. I later learned this was a common practice in many non-Western countries, so I had to explain to them that it was considered inappropriate in the US. Other than that, I've never had a student try to bribe me. However, when my wife was working as a biology tutor and graduate assistant back when she was starting her PhD, she had a student who was failing the class. The student's father called her and asked, "What can I do to get you to help my son with his homework?" She said something like, "Oh, I'm already helping him. We meet to go over the homework he's working on twice a week." The father responded, "That's very nice. Can I pay you something to help my son with his homework?" She responded, "You don't understand. I'm paid by the university as a tutor. There's no additional charge for my help beyond the normal tuition." The father repeated more earnestly, "Ah, that's nice. Is there something I can give you to help my son with his homework?" She kept re-explaining that she was already helping him with his homework, and he kept trying to rephrase the question until he grew frustrated and hung up. It wasn't until a few months later she realized that the father was trying to bribe her into doing her son's homework for him or giving him a passing grade. However, my wife was simply too naive to pick up on what he was trying to suggest. So, that's the only case I know of personally in which a teacher was offered a bribe. I'm sure the parent was terribly frustrated by her inability to read between the lines. I wasn't a teacher, but rather a TA in high school for the US history class. As such, I had access to a lot of different course materials that could have been helpful, and since I'm a huge history nerd myself, I helped the teacher write the final after class one week. And then a student came in and saw that we were writing the final. That night, his Snapchat friend requested me. I probably had 15 or 20 offers for anything and everything within the week. Guys offering me beer and weed and cash, trips out on their parents' boat, girls offering to send me all sorts of images, all of which would have been illegal, given that I was 18, and they were all 17, dates and other extracurricular activities. See, the teacher didn't tell any of the students, but he curved the class 10% at the end of the semester. But that meant that there were a lot of students who were at a D who would be passing the course, almost all the guys, and even more students who had never gotten anything below a B, who currently had one, almost all girls. I didn't take any of them up on it, for obvious moral and legal reasons, but also because I felt bad that they didn't know their grades were going to be curved upwards. Now, my great bribe offer to my app calc professor was that we'd all decorate his house for Christmas for him in exchange for no full semester final. He countered, saying that we still had to do the final, but we could all skip one question, and we had to decorate a picture of his house so he could know what to do, but no students would leave campus. That worked out well for both parties, I think. After I retired from the Air Force, I wanted to get a master's in computer science. I applied at a local 4-year school and was accepted to their master's program. I think my comp science grades and my teaching experience in the Air Force had a lot to do with my acceptance. They asked me to teach a class for non-computer science students in programming. Sounded like a good challenge. I eventually taught 4 quarters of that class and enjoyed every minute. On the first day of class, I always asked the students how many of them had ever written a computer program. No surprises, no one admitted to programming. So, I thought I would show them that they actually wrote programs every day. I continued by saying, your main goal in this class is to get a good grade and I love chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. We then proceeded, with my prompting, to write a program to produce a chocolate cake. Going from getting a cake mix, to frosting the cake, to eating it. Almost without exception, I use the chocolate cake as the example for introducing the different constructs used in programming. I'd remind them that they wanted a good grade and of my love of chocolate cake. One year, I walked into the class to give the final. There on the desk at the head of the room was, you guessed it, a chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. An anonymous note said thanks for the course and enjoy. I shared it with the class after the test and thoroughly enjoyed it. Never found out who made the cake, but I sure hope they got a good grade. I never met with such situation. But a colleague of mine has shared such experience she once had. This happened while she was working as a maths lecturer in a diploma college at her hometown. After examinations, there would be a jumbling system, so exam papers from another colleges also come to this college. During the valuation procedure, she opened one booklet. There used to be only the hall ticket number and name of the subject. One could not guess the gender or any other details of the candidate. The candidate has not attempted properly. Within a short notice she understood that this candidate was going fail in this exam. After rolling some pages of the booklet, there was written something in Telugu, mother tongue of people in Andhra Pradesh, which was mind-blowing. I don't know the exact words, but I would write how I heard from her. The candidate was a male. He wrote a letter or an obligation to the examiner. He was the final year student and due to some reasons he hasn't prepared well for the exam, so he was sure he would fail in this particular exam. If so, he has to wait for the next semester to attempt again. So he requested the whomsoever examiner to let him pass the exam with some average marks. Up to here it was fine as there was a request in his words. But it was not so. In the next page he spliced a transparent cover with 100 rupee note in it. The whole room burst in laughter. She took the money and bought snacks for the whole staff. And of course the student had failed in that paper. You may get a doubt here, when she has no intention to pass him, why should she accept the money? If she had accepted that, definitely he would become fearless towards exams and future point, and he may suggest the same to his friends. She didn't accept the proposal, but decided to teach him a lesson. So he would not repeat such actions and no one would dare to follow his steps. I am really proud of her. In Canada, trying to bribe a teacher or university instructor is treated the same way as cheating. It is grounds for immediate expulsion, with no chance to re-enter the same university and a dark cloud over your head for the rest of your scholastic career. If a teacher or instructor has been found to accept a bribe, his career is over. Sometimes even the suspicion that an instructor might have accepted a bribe can be enough for the school or college to decide not to renew his/her contract. So it doesn't happen very often. When I was in Indonesia, I heard a number of stories about students attempting to bribe teachers, and once my husband received a cake with the names of several students on the card just before final exams. He wrote, "Wrong house," across the card and refused to accept the cake. Another Indonesian instructor we knew had a meeting with a student to talk about her work. At the end of the interview, she quietly put some money down on his desk. "What's that?" he asked. "It's just for cigarettes," she answered. He countered, "In the first place, I don't smoke. Secondly, this is an insult to me. So if you want to know whether you will pass or fail this course, I will end the suspense for you. You failed." Get out of here. He refused to meet with her again, and she lost her year of studies. I think this approach is essential. It's not really common. I'm an English for academic purposes tutor, and one of the things we teach is presentation skills. As part of the final assessment for the course we were teaching, students had to an 8-minute presentation in English on an academic topic related to their area of study, and one student was going to talk about gravity. Is it okay if I bring in my props? She asked. Sure, we said. She brought in 2 apples. We were expecting her to, I dunno, demonstrate 2 celestial bodies orbiting around each other with different sized apples. She placed them in front of us and winked. No demonstration. When she left, we tried to give her the apples back. No, the props are for you, she said with another wink. She got a B. So far in 13 years of teaching, the biggest bribe I've ever received is 1 medium-sized apple. I'm clearly doing something wrong. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.